Welcome back to the Rory Talks Football channel, your daily Arsenal news, updates, my opinions and reactions, and we have got so much to get into today. Declan Rice, massive news on him. Kai Havertz, more news on him. We've got Arsenal's fixtures coming out as well, so loads to get into. Grab yourself a nice cold beverage on this hot day, and we will get into it. First of all, though, if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. We are very close to hitting that 2,750 mark. I massively appreciate the support. And smash a like on the video if you enjoy it. So, Declan Rice, it came out this morning. I think it first came out from ex-West Ham employee, who is decent, but all of his stuff's behind a Patreon, saying that Arsenal had made a bid and it had been rejected. But it then came out from Ornstein. That was the big one that came out this morning. Exclusive, Arsenal have made an opening offer to Declan Rice, to sign Declan Rice from West Ham. Tim Lewis and Karen Brady held talks at the PLAGN, though Edu and Richard Garlick are leading the process. Man City now exploring their own approach to the 24-year-old. So that read wonderfully until that final sentence that threw West Ham into the mix, that's threw Man City into the mix, rather. That is not ideal at all. Fabrizio Romano said Arsenal opening bid for Declan Rice has been rejected immediately by West Ham. Sources guarantee that the total value of the bid was £80 million, not enough to convince West Ham. That seems very low. From the numbers that we've been hearing for weeks about what Arsenal were willing to pay and what West Ham were willing to accept, 80, I know you go in low, but 80 million seems very low. He then followed that up by saying Arsenal have significantly advanced on Declan Rice's personal terms in the last few days. That's why Arsenal will bid again to find a solution with West Ham. 80 million was never going to be enough to convince West Ham, as they hope for more than 100 million to sell Rice. And then Jacob Steinberg, who's a tier 1 source for West Ham, said West Ham reject Arsenal's £80 million Declan Rice bid and await an offer from Manchester City. So, where do I think this is heading? I think that West Ham are probably using Man City's name to try and get more out of Arsenal. I think it would be unlikely that suddenly Man City would start exploring Declan Rice and then would come in and blow us out of the water. It's a possibility, of course it's a possibility. They've got the money to do it. We know Declan Rice wants Arsenal, or he wants to stay in London. It would be unusual, I do think, for Man City to come in with a bid. So I think it's more likely that West Ham are holding off Arsenal. They know we want to get it done quickly. And maybe they are genuinely waiting for something from Man City. But either way, I do think he'll still end up at Arsenal. I think this could rumble on for a little while now with West Ham trying to milk it for all it's worth. I've seen some other things. Apparently, the add-ons that Arsenal are looking for obviously involve us winning the Premier League and the Champions League. Depending on how that's weighted, again, it was similar with Mudryk that we offered those sorts of add-ons, and if they don't think we're going to win the Champions League, then it doesn't make a lot of sense. Look, I do think he's going to come to us. It is still generally considered by all the journalists that Arsenal are still the favourites to do it. I just think it's going to end up dragging on. And, I expect it will end up over 100 million. Truthfully, I do think it's going to end up over 100 million. But you absolutely cannot let him go to Man City. If you're a serious club and you're serious about winning titles, you cannot go into a transfer window with your number one target, that it's known to the world is your number one target, and let him go to the one team that beat you last season. It cannot happen. And to be fair, generally speaking, Man City aren't known to overpay for a player. And, you look at the fact that Bellingham's just gone to Real Madrid for 115 million. Would Man City rather have stumped up for Bellingham rather than coming in for Rice? Because if they're going to gazump us, they're going to have to pay over 100 million for Rice. So, look, generally I am still confident, but it's just frustrating, isn't it? To be honest, I really thought that Arsenal were going to come in with an offer that West Ham would accept. I thought that the whole reason this had been going on in the background for so long was that we were preparing an offer that would be accepted. But it doesn't necessarily seem like that's going to be the case now. Obviously, our other source that I normally listen to is Team News and Ticks, but he hasn't said anything on the matter just yet. So that's kind of where we're at with Declan Rice. First bid made. We're going to come in with the second bid. I do think it's going to speed up now. Now that first bid's been made, it's all public. I do think it'll speed up. And hopefully it does. On to Kai Havertz. Obviously, yesterday, I think my video went up before David Ornstein had reported that Arsenal had actually made a proposal. At the time that I made the video, we were just interested. A proposal was made. And following on from that, Plettigol, who's a reliable German source for Bayern Munich, said Arsenal is really considering a transfer of Havertz this summer. Talks are proceeding well, and Havertz is keen to join. Understand the price valuation from Arsenal is about 60 million now. A move to Arsenal is more realistic than Real Madrid, and FC Bayern have no plans to enter the race. So, you know, if Arsenal are looking at 60 million for Kai Havertz, apparently Chelsea want 75 million. So their valuations aren't actually that far off, and it's something that could end up happening. I have to say, I just don't think it's going to help us bidding for Declan Rice. If I'm West Ham, right, and I've seen or heard that you're considering 60 million for Kai Havertz, I think it's a piss take. Truthfully, if you're offering 80 million for Declan Rice and 60 million for Kai Havertz, I'm like, what are you smoking? What are you smoking here? So it is a weird one, and again, it also just rules us out of Caicedo, I think, for a player that I don't see getting into the starting lineup. So it is an interesting one. Obviously, you know, I back Arteta, and I respect whatever Arteta wants to do. But again, Nissan Kinsella, who's a reliable source for Chelsea, said Arsenal hope that the June deadline will make Chelsea drop the price for Havertz, but are willing to match his 250 grand a week salary. So we'd put Havertz on more than Martinelli, Saliba, Saka. I think effectively only Gabriel Jesus at the club would be earning more than Kai Havertz. And again, I'm like, what has he done in the last 2 years to justify that? Like, what has he done to justify that? I don't get it. I don't get it personally. And, you know, it's really not something that I would be particularly interested in. So we'll see how that develops. Obviously, subscribe for updates on Havertz and Declan Rice. And then I just wanted to touch on the fixtures. The fixtures came out this morning. The notable ones, we open up the Premier League on the first day, or not on the first day, we open up on the Saturday, lunchtime kickoff, at home to Nottingham Forest. Now, that is a very nice way to start the season. That's probably in, you know, one of the 5 easiest fixtures in the Premier League, based on Forest's away form, certainly last season. So that's a nice way to open up. We then we head into, obviously, the period of Champions League group games, and our matches in and around those Champions League group games, basically the ones that follow every Champions League group game, are Spurs at home, Man City at home, Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, Wolves at home, and Brighton at home. So one thing you'll notice there is that after every single Champions League game, we have a home game, which is a very fortunate coincidence. You know, it's always difficult playing after a European game, but the fact that we're not going to be travelling out to who knows where, travelling back, and then having to travel again within the UK is really beneficial. Obviously, the two that stand out there as difficult games to have after a Champions League game are Spurs at home and Man City at home. But other than that, they're quite favourable. So that's quite lucky. I would argue our most difficult section of the season is at the end of the season. Our final 5 away games, we have Man City away, Brighton away, Wolves away, which isn't too bad, Spurs away, and Man United away. So within our final 5 away games, we play City, Brighton, Spurs, and United. That's quite difficult. And if you compare it to Man City's run-in, again, Man City, in their final 8 games, the only big team they play is Spurs. They've got an unbelievably good run in again. Other than that, the one sort of notable thing is that we end the season with Everton at home. So basically a guaranteed 5-0 in the sunshine in our final game of the season. But look, to be honest, there isn't actually any section of our fixture list that looks really scary. Not that there should be fixture lists that look scary to us anymore. But yeah, there are really no sort of nasty sections for us in the same way that there are for some other teams. So not too bad at all. And that is it for today's video. Obviously, if there are more developments around Rice and Havertz, particularly, maybe Caicedo, I will follow up with them. Follow me on all my socials if you want to keep up to date. Other than that, please do subscribe, like I said, smash a like on the video, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Cheers.